Hello, I'm Phil Svitek, 360 Creative Coach, and in this episode, I want to talk about a question that Tim Ferris often asks himself, which is, how am I complicit in creating the conditions that I don't want? Now, what does that mean, complicit? Well, it essentially means, what have I allowed to happen in my life for which there is bad stuff? Because oftentimes, we try to externalize, oh, this isn't my fault and things like that. And it's like, no, oftentimes, in fact, in all things in life, if things happen to us, well, it's because we kind of allow ourselves to let them happen. Now, please don't say don't all of a sudden comment and say oh, well, if someone gets in a car crash or, there's a rape or something like that, that they allowed themselves those conditions. I'm not talking about those extremes. I'm talking about the day-to-day quality of your life. What have you allowed to enter into your life that you don't want? Because you have to take responsibility for that. If your friends just constantly keep, let's say, just take a small example, if they keep coming up to you and wanting money, right? Well, it's have you given them money in the past and kind of now this has allowed to become a pattern? Doesn't negate them from being, let's say, shitty friends that just keep asking you for money unconditionally, thinking you're always going to give it to them. But you also have to take your side of it. What are you to blame for? And it's if you've allowed that to happen, well, then that is on you. So in essence, this really comes down to setting up boundaries, right? Now, I talk to a lot of people about this, and they always kind of, the thing of it is they have a lot of regret. They're like, I wish I put up these boundaries when things started, right? When I got to know this person or whatever else. And it's that's not a healthy exercise either, because this isn't, by looking at the conditions that you don't want and how are you complicit, it's not to say you have to then all of a sudden berate yourself. It's an exercise in which to examine what have you allowed, and then, okay, out of that must come a solution. Because looking in hindsight in itself is not a productive thing, right? If all you get out of it is be oh, I should have put up boundaries, but I didn't, okay, that doesn't change your life for the better. Instead, what you have to do is, okay, I view it, and now I realize through that, I need to say no, from moving forward, I'm not just going to give you money, using the example of if a friend just continually wants money. By the way, if you think that this has happened to me, I'm not saying, it's just for some reason, I don't know why, it's a random example that I pulled. But I can kind of come up with other ones, but I just didn't want you thinking all of a sudden this has happened to me and this is my way of venting. But the point being go into the past, and now all of a sudden you can redefine new conditions, and you can say hey, moving forward, this is kind of how I'm gonna be operating, and I need you to kind of respect that. Certainly don't use those words, contextualize that, but the subtext of it is being that, right? And, at the end of the day, they are on board with that or they're not. And I think this is where more so the difficulty for people comes in, because it's not they wish, when people have regret over I should have put up these boundaries, from the onset. It's they're scared of losing a relationship, perhaps it's a job, whatever it may be, of I should have set these boundaries, and now I have to change, I want to change for the better, but it could come at a cost of the other thing, right? And that's something that you have to be willing to do if you truly believe that it is a big enough negative in your life. If it's just a minor inconvenience, okay, maybe then you assess that and you're okay, fine, whatever. But if it really is a hindrance and a true negativity in your life that and just brings you down, then you have to kind of essentially step up, knowing what the cost may be. But I think too many people look at what the cost could be versus what the upside is. It's if you're in especially if you're in a deep dark place, it's like you only have up to go. So if, let's say, like, you're allowing yourself to be walked on by all of your friends, well, A, they're not your friends to begin with, and B, your life can only get better by now putting up boundaries or whatever else. And you have to see that there's a better side to this, right? You're not trying to hurt anyone. You can't be a doormat, essentially. So really kind of think of it in those terms. And yeah, I think this often expresses itself through relationships. It could be a romantic relationship, it could be a friendship, it could be a parental relationship, but nonetheless, we have to, if you approach it from the standpoint of caring and passion, you kind of have to know that at the end of the day, certain relationships are meant to be seasonal, and sometimes they're just meant to teach us something, and that's sad. But if you go into it, not being defensive, not being a dick, and really just kind of, expressing yourself and kind of still having compassion for the other person, it might deteriorate the relationship maybe forever, but maybe just for the short term, because then they might realize, like, what, I have been treating you unfairly, and that wasn't right of me, and you're completely well within your rights to, say this is how you would like to have things kind of move forward. So really think about that, question. And I think anytime there's something wrong in your life, really ask, how am I complicit in creating the conditions for my life that I don't want? It's a hard exercise at times, because it unearths a lot of demons about ourselves. I've certainly gone through this exercise, and at times I'm like, damn, it's like, I've been doing what? But that's how we get better. That's how we make our lives better. So really, really do that work. And, it's like hard now, easy later type of thing. There's also another notion, Amanda Palmer, who's Neil Gaiman's wife, she has this kind of great quote, like, if we choose not to deal with certain demons, it's like they're within us, just pumping iron and getting stronger and stronger. Choosing not to deal with something is a form of dealing with it. It's just not an active decision necessarily. So think about that. Really, really, really have an active role in your life, and make choices that, in your heart of hearts, make your life better. So, think about that. Anyway, that's what I have for you today. If you have any questions or thoughts of your own, by all means, ask. Write them down in the comments section, or hit me up on social media at Svitek. It would be a pleasure to discuss these notions with you further. If you have someone in your life that would benefit from this lesson, by all means, share it with them. I certainly would appreciate it. And also, to that point, if you enjoy this lesson, then you probably would enjoy some of my other lessons. And to get them, I would encourage you to subscribe if you aren't subscribed already. That way you get all the various lessons that I put out right when I put them out. Anyway, thank you for taking the time to tune in. I hope to see you next time.